want to fail. And I know I will fail, but if you don't try, you're never gonna fail. The path to recovery and training again is better than the race itself. So when I hit the wall, it's never a great feeling, but just the path to get back and stand back again, that's where I get the adrenaline, where it gets exciting.
Welcome to Sports and Outdoor Mentors. In this, the second of a two-part series, I chat with Franco Fogliato, the CEO and president of Salomon. Franco started his career in junior sales roles, but quickly progressed to senior leadership positions with some market-leading brands, including the North Face, Columbia Sportswear, and now Salomon. We chat about his most important task as a leader, making business more sustainable, and the importance of growing outdoor sport participation, plus much more. Before we jump into the episode, I have one favor to ask. Please hit the subscribe button. This helps us to grow the channel, elevate the content, and continue to bring you insights from amazing leaders from the sports and outdoor industry. Thanks for your support and enjoy the episode. So what would you consider to be your most important task as a leader of a global brand?
That's a great question. I think first of all is transforming the planet into a better place. I think I grew up in the industry. You know, if someone would have asked me in the late 90s, what do you do? And I said, well, we'll build product, but literally build and sell product for going and spending time outside. And literally over the years, I have realized that the impact we have in the planet is much bigger than what I thought. And people would say to me, I would say to people, look, we're not doctors, we're not saving lives, so take it easy. Right? Don't make that too complex. Actually, over the years, I've found out that we do have an impact in many ways, whether it is through the business of what we do, but also, when you look at outdoor practice or sport practice in the world of digital is still not big enough. And that's a challenge. People ask me all the time, how are we gonna grow the company when people will be buying less stuff or they're going to be staying at home? And I keep saying people won't buy less stuff. They will buy differently. They will buy different product. Now, the transformation of the industry is our major responsibility. It's the responsibility for what we do in terms of the teams that work for our organization, whether it's Salomon and another industry organization. There are responsibility we have with these people, with this family, but also how do we protect the future of this younger generation. I remember my son walking, and I think it was probably, he was just about to enter high school. It was maybe 12, 13. He came in for dinner once, and he says, over dinner, he says, well, yeah, because you guys are destroying the planet we're gonna live on. Excuse me? What are you talking about? He says, well, at school, we know you guys are destroying the planet. Whoa, calm down. It was, okay, well, it's more complex, right? It's complex. Now, it is complex, it's not easy. Let's make sure we realize what responsibility we have. And we do have a responsibility. Responsibility getting out people out there, they're going to get much better with themselves. I keep saying one day I want people to go and don't use car, just use running shoes and run. Now, obviously, I'm pushing the boundaries. Not always possible, but there is a way. Every time, I think the impact of producing a pair of shoes is like driving a car for 50 miles. How do we drive less the cars and we spend more time into the outdoors? There's definitely a change with COVID. COVID has accelerated that. You can live, you are a great example. You live next to nature and you know how much it gets you and your family a better version because you are connected with nature. And we are very fortunate. We live here. So how do our responsibility is to make sure that we will bring more people in a responsible way into nature, and in particular younger generation. They're saying, I was in this, there's this larger European organization that basically are futurists. They talk about what's going to happen over the next 30 years. They're saying teenagers today, they will live until they are 115 years old. It's pretty impressive. right? I think about when I was going to INSEAD and doing this training session I think it was mid-2000, and they were talking about what people said in the 70s on what would have happened in 2000. They were actually right. The only thing they were wrong was the timing. What was supposed to happen in 2000 actually happened in 1980. So the world was going a lot faster than what anyone thought about. So that responsibility of protecting the planet is absolutely one of the priority. And is how do we do that? It comes through engagement, passion. It comes through motivation, investment. There's all a series of things that we need to do. Our role as an industry leader is either drive the change through the organization, but also raise this so people can talk about that. I think we spent the time last year with the management at the Columbia Business School, and they're probably one of the most advanced school doing study about what is necessary to drive the change. And I think to maintain the temperature impact within the 1.5 degrees, which is the goal over the next 50 years, we need to reinvest in sustainability and sustainable investment about 3% of the GDP, the global GDP. So the amount of money that is required is actually minimum when you think of the size of the global business. So we have that engagement that comes with raising the awareness, and that's what we have to do as industry leaders. And we have to do it in the right way, and we have to be consistent and make sure it doesn't become a marketing activity. It's not marketing. The scope and the impact of what we do is fundamental. And I keep telling to the teams, don't tell me the marketing story. What are we doing? How do we push the boundaries? We're very lucky because our industry is led by athletes. The athletes are those that are pushing the boundaries, and they're very sensitive. And they're the first one to say, we're changing the way we behave as a function of driving education and engagement to the people. The good news is happening. Is that fast enough? I hope so. I believe it is. We know there is a way to reduce the impact. We keep saying we also want to make sure people don't think that consume less, or they're not going to move in the next 20 years to avoid the impact. It's not like this. Yeah. You have to consume and to behave in a different way. Now, the good news is human being is adaptable. That's the biggest. It's not strong. We're not strong. We're adaptable, and that's one of the biggest characteristics. And I'm pretty positive about what we're going to do to improve the planet. And I'm very, very aware of the role we play on doing this. And it's not, it's because we believe it's because we have a role, but also because if we do this, then it's going to be a better place for everyone. And we're going to enjoy even more than what we do today.
Yeah. As well as the sustainability topic that you just talked about, you also touched on there the need for people to spend more time outdoors, or let's say the benefits. And I think we all understand that. And I think generally, probably driven by COVID, the broader population understands it. And yet we still see in the Western world that obesity is growing, ironically. And in the UK, you have prisoners spend more time outdoors than children do, which is... even thinking about it, it always upsets me. What do you think as an industry we should be doing to better get more people outdoors?
It's a great question, and we ask ourselves this every day. I think there are different ways. I think innovation, both in product and sport, are fundamental. Every time you get people to do sports, to engage, or to hear about something that is coming new, brings more willingness. There is education. Whether we have a new sport, whether it's climbing or trail running, even trail running. We live in the industry, we live in Annecy, we think everyone trail runs, right? People still look at me and say, what do you do? you run in a mountain. Oh, you don't run in a mountain. I mean, even hiking is a younger sport for kids and generation. So there's all of those things that you think are very well developed when you are in the industry. But when you go outside, the real participation is still very low. So I think we're in a good curve. Structuring the sport, that's what we're doing. Olympics, we just announced this partnership supporting the largest events in the planet, because those are the events that get engagement. When people look at that, they get motivated to get out. So it's an industry. The stronger the industry, the brands, the leaders, the more we will gain followers, will bring people out. I think people that get what COVID has been bad, but we translated that into almost an opportunity, because suddenly we've been able to show people that there is a different way of living. Yeah. And if you go up, and if you're not fortunate enough to get access to the outdoors, or you have the culture, or you live in a big country, or there are many ways where you maybe not even get exposed to sports. So that's changing, okay? And I think, when I grew up in the Northeast of Italy, there was a little bit of hiking, and hiking wasn't a sport. We go out to the mountain. There was obviously alpinism has always been there, but there was a little bit of skiing for sure. But literally there were a few sports. Now there is a lot more that are engaging communities. But we're just at the beginning. When you look at the Western world, it's definitely probably more into sports. But when you go into the US, there are areas of the US where the participation of sports is very low. You go to other continents, the participation of sports is very low. And so that engagement of the industry to constantly push the boundaries, whether through sports, ambassador, leaders, I call that the engagement of the industry to drive the boundaries is a fundamental. And again, we think everyone does that. It's not true. It's still a small amount of people. I had the data, and again, I will need to look to the quote, but I think it was when you look at, and this was prior COVID, when you look at defining outdoor activities, like going outside once a year to do some type of sport, I think in the US participation was less than 30%. It's what? No, that's impossible. Actually, and to your point, you think of big city, how do you do this? Or it's not even how do you do you have the culture to do that? And do you value that? And those are and there are, primary needs compared to secondary. I think this is becoming a need that is probably raising over the pyramid. And because to your point before, it will make people feeling better. And it will take will lead to people eating less or eating in a different way. There is this culture of well-being that is growing, and nature is a major part of this, finding that balance. And again, as leaders, that's what we're driving. Yeah. That's what we're driving. Business comes later, honestly. That the business is a function of the role of many of those brands in terms of driving the change and the transformation of the world. Yeah.
If as an industry there can be even more collaboration, I think already we're reasonably good at collaborating as an industry. I think it can be better. The message can be stronger and we can be more impactful, and ultimately, that will help the business as well.
For sure.
Of course.
And to be honest, I think there's been a starting line. There's no finish line. The finish line, there is a checkpoint, which will be, what the temperature will be in 2050. And we are all in that competition. But there is no finish line. And it's the constant evolution of humanity. And what's going to happen one day, we're going to be 10 billion people. How we're going to live? And those, I don't have an answer. We're definitely will happen. And globally, now quality of life has increased dramatically, but also the challenges have increased dramatically. Now, do we think it's better to go back where we were 100 years ago? No. This quality of life will continue to improve. People will continue to live longer. but we have to change the way we live, for sure. And I think sports and nature will become a more important part of what we do every day. And again, COVID-19 has been accelerating that. I still remember, people were like, I still have a date, it's June 30th, one of the largest retailers in the US calling me in the office and saying, I need all the product you have. And I said, sorry, I said, Steve, your stores are closed and the warehouse is closed. We can't send anything. He says, no, you don't understand. I'm doing buy online curbside pickup. I got a line of almost half a mile outside the store. Is the week prior to July the 4th, and I have no shorts left. They're all going ballistic to get out. They got the time. They can drive. There are beautiful lakes around here. Everyone wants to do that now. They didn't have the time. They didn't have the engagement. They didn't understand how good it was. Now they're all in it. So be ready. And it was like, since then, the industry has been on a rapid curve. People are talking, it's going to go back. It's never going to go back where it was. It's just not going to be. There will be stabilization, but this trend, the casualization and the sports and the outdoor trends is a trend that's been growing for the last 30 years. When I joined the industry, we were tiny, small company in the big corporate world. Today, if someone was upset that the brands I work for, they were the size we were, I would say, you got to be kidding. That's never going to happen. And, the world has changed. And luckily enough, it's changing to being a better place. We do have some challenges now, so we just need to address them.
Talking about challenges, so you mentioned earlier on that one of the best times to learn is from failure.
Yeah.
So looking back over your career, is there any one particular tough challenge that really stands out, and what did you learn from it?
I will call out two of them. I'll go with what I say probably the professional one first. It's probably when I had to do some restructuring, and that wasn't easy. It was necessary for the business, and that was a great learning curve. Going back to the basics, how to protect jobs. It is never easy. It was a great learning curve. Would I do that again? No. It was ugly. It was tough, and I didn't sleep for months. Was literally very difficult. From a personal perspective, I will probably recall. I did have one day I was found with cancer. Okay. In 2008. I've never been loud about that, but never hide that. That was big change. I was fortunate enough that surgery and the treatment fixed it within 9 months. When you find out, I was lucky enough for different ways. First of all, I was discovered because a friend of mine, Patricia, a very close friend, she's a doctor. She was smart enough to understand there was something not working well with my body, and she did send me to do a test where they discovered there was a few things that weren't working. And then I was fortunate enough because obviously the type of cancer was, you could have fixed it. Yeah. And that was a great learning curve. Suddenly things get into a different perspective. Yeah. Again, I've been very lucky. Fortunate enough, family was in my back, colleagues, friends, great people around me. I look at back and says, did it really happen to me? This is 15 years ago. So there's a time where you sit down and say, well, is this really happening to me? Why is it happening to me? And put things in a perspective. Yeah. Okay, everything that you think is important, change the level of importance. So those were probably the two different things that have shaped over the time who I am in terms of responsibility, understanding the future, sometimes taking a little bit of a step back in terms of, in particular when you have to take important decision that will have an impact.
So if you knew you wouldn't fail, what would you do differently?
That's a big question. I don't know. I want to fail, and I know I will fail. When I go and race and I have set a target for finishing a race and I don't get the time, or when I didn't finish the UTMB the first time I went, and it was a failure. And, and I wanted that. I felt the path to recovery and training again is better than the race itself. And that feeling of racing again is what brings me adrenaline and excites me. So when I hit the wall, it's never a great feeling, but just the path to get back and stand back again, that's where I get the adrenaline, where it gets exciting me. And again, is do I want to fail? I don't really start for failing, but I know every time I fail, and I fail every day in something, I just get excited about the path to go back and stand back again. And that's where the adrenaline comes. I think the body, having adrenaline going around in the body is the best feeling you can have. It's like the endorphin of racing. So I think a feeling is part of what we do. Yeah. And it should be part. You can't plan for that.
Yeah. So it should be embraced, not feared somehow.
Oh, no, absolutely. And it should be accepted, and again, you should look at the opportunity behind the fact of failing. But if you don't try, you're never going to fail, right? It's just the nature of building who you are as a function of who you want it to be. And trying hard is always been one of the things I love to do. And again, I see even between my wife and I, we have different attitude. She would have never tried the stuff that I tried, okay? But it's different character, different way of finding. And I respect this. But the way I want me and my life is trying hard, the continuous improvement, the challenging. And if I fail, you know what, I'm stand up again. I will stand up again. And that actually the good news is I will enjoy a lot that failure and the learning that comes with the failure and that path to get back into standing again.
What's your favorite piece of sports or outdoor gear? And it cannot be something from Salomon, because that's way too easy. Although I have to say, considering everything that is around us, it's probably quite difficult to find something that you own that isn't Salomon maybe, but I'm sure there's some things.
No, look, I have boxes at home of, I keep I think I have maybe 10 boxes with all the t-shirts of the, 50 plus ultra race I've done. Yeah. I had to stop to keep the shoes because otherwise I needed a new wife, because she said at a certain time is over. Okay, we can't have one room packed with your shoes. I would say there isn't one product. There are several products that I love, and there are products that shape the industry. I was mentioning, I think about the Nuptse jacket from North Face. I have a Nuptse. The funny story is that my son came back maybe a couple of years ago and says, well, I want to get a Nuptse jacket because all my friends are wearing it. And, Nuptse, that was like a layer for climbing Everest in the mid-90s, unique, iconic pieces. And I said to him, well, there's no way you're going to spend all those money for North Face. And I said, well, actually, I have the solution. I have the Nuptse, and I have the real one, okay? So I went back and literally opened the boxes down our place in southwest of France and gave him the Nuptse jacket, which I had from 97. There's the Bugaboo jacket from Colombia that was absolutely an iconic piece, transform the outdoors. I think about the Rising Sun ball shorts from Andy Irons, from Billabong. I have all those pieces. I think about Salomon. I was mentioning, you come to my office, I'm going to show you later. I got the Crossmax from 2000. That is a ski that redefined the industry. There wasn't really cross skiing or border cross if there wasn't Salomon deer. I have those are the kind of pieces I love. Now I have my 6 pair of the XT6, or it's the culture around the product, the passion around the product. I think this is one of the things that's been pushing and motivating me. And again, it's a fine balance on how many of them you can keep. How many pair of skis do you need? N+1. That's what you need. Same story with bikes. So it's. I think a sport got into. So we do some product. The industry does some of the product now. They're not even products any longer. They're expression of a self-being. They are art. It's really impressive. Again, you look at the evolution from a product perspective over 30 years. You would go hiking with mid-cut leather boots in the late 90s, and today, you go with lightweight shoes that are as consistent, as stable as a mid-cut leather boot, and still, you think half of the world use white sneakers to go on a trail, which is not safe, but it's part of the evolution of the engagement with the community. So again, there are some iconic products. They're there. They're part of my place and the way I protect what I've been living. I was fortunate enough to live into the industry.
Yeah. You talked about the team there. So if today was your last day at Salomon, what would your message be to the team?
The first advice would be just be yourself. Enjoy life. Life is too short for not enjoying that. Second would be passionate about what you do. And when I say passionate, it's not only passionate around your work. You have to live a life with passion, with motivation, and with commitment. This goes to lead by example. You can't ask people to do more than what you do. So, I wouldn't say I'm the first one to come to the office and to leave in the evening, but definitely when I'm here, I will be engaging with the teams and showing I'm around. I think the suggestion is, the biggest probably suggestion is what has shaped who I am today is the people around me. So make sure you have better people than you. And that's not only at work, that's from a life perspective. That learning that comes with people better than you, next to you, it's fundamental. And I remember one of my mentor, the CEO of Billabong, actually, at that time, he said in the early part of his career, he thought he didn't want to hire better people than him because they would have eventually taken his job. But literally, after a few years, he actually said, everyone that I'm going to hire is going to be better than me, so I can learn. It was a great learning curve at the beginning or in my mid-30s because I never thought about it, okay? And today, I look at where I'm weak or where the company is weak, and I sit down with management saying, these are the capabilities we need, the skills we need, let's go and bring them in. I try to go running with our athletes. I think last trail camp we had around the Mont Blanc, they said, well, you got to come out with us. They literally killed me, okay? For them, it was a cruising, wasn't training. It was a great moment, great time. And again, I love spending time with them because they're such great leaders in what they do. So ultimately, that continuous improvement, passion for doing stuff, but also for learning is feeding the evolution of the world. And I never thought I would try to become a leader. That was the last thing I thought about when I was working. I just wanted to do what I liked. Yeah. And that has been always the major driver. And again, I have the biggest leader around me. They're not management. They're people that work in the company. They build the product. They just love what they do. They don't need to run a company. It's not maybe what they want. Okay, there are great leaders around the organization that never going to run a company. And that's the best way. So the expression of yourself is always around who you want to be. And that's a fundamental. I think the opportunity with the industry and with Salomon is so great. We have the industry and the Salomon there are some brands in the industry that have shaped the industry. And Salomon is one of them. When I look back who I am today, I wouldn't be who I am if there wasn't trail running. and Salomon's been there, as North Face has been there at that time. So I think the message will be, just make sure you enjoy every single moment of what you do, because you're so fortunate. And this is just the beginning of the opportunity. George Salomon used to say, I'm excited about what I'm going to do tomorrow. And that's the spirit that is driving the Salomon team, but I think it's driving also the industry. That constant improvement, that passion around what we're going to be doing today and tomorrow. Okay, and that comes through the energy of the people. I feel, sometimes you get hammered over the day and problems, and people obviously deliver to you hundreds of problems. I go around in the company, I see people smiling, I see people around with skis, someone calls and knocking my door and saying, we're gonna test those shoes, are you coming out? That's what is driving. That's what is making my day better. That's what is making their day better. That engagement and passion is fundamentally the difference that's made the world a better place, and has made this industry so important and strong, and in particular has made Salomon what it is today, a leading brand in the planet.
Do you read a lot of business books?
I do. I wouldn't say business books. Is a mix.
Okay. And you'd recommend?
Yeah, look, we read books all the time. I think I try to read maybe a book a month. Travel sometimes help. I have a rule when we go out with management, I always give as a present a book to management. I would say I actually, my preferred author is Wilbur Smith. So I read all his books, both in English, Italian, and even some in French. That is relaxing.
What was the name? Sorry,
Wilbur Smith, the South African who write. He's a romance, so he doesn't write business book. But in terms of business book, I'm at the moment I've just finished. Oh my gosh, it's the book on the All Blacks.
Yes. Yeah.
Around the leadership.
Yeah. Is it Dan Carter's book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's again, I finished a few weeks ago. It was given me by one of my colleagues, Duda Henderson, who's the CEO of Arc'teryx, and so we exchange. It's a learning opportunity. I think books is great. I love to keep books. Recently we've been reading about a book around sustainability, and exactly what I was saying. We need a 3% of the global domestic product investment into new technologies to drive a better world and more sustainable world. So to answer your question, yes, I definitely read book. I try to make sure I always train for something. Yeah. Okay, I just love it. So whether I'm going to a school, I went to INSEAD for a corporate governance certification a couple of years ago, got to meet great leaders, got to get books from these great leaders. I recently read a book around the new capitalism.
Okay.
In the past, shareholders were all about profit. Shareholders are not about profit today. I look at myself as an executive, as an investor. When I invest into startup or businesses, I always look at what impact they're going to have in nature. As an executive, I can guarantee you that most of the time we will get calls for people that wanted to invest in sustainable businesses. So there's a way that the industry is completely reshaping. When you talk to great people, they don't want to work for a corporation that makes big money. They want to work for a company and an organization that changed the world. In particular, into the industry, there's a new generation of Gen Z millennials are coming in and working in this industry. They want something different. They want the future, and we have to feed them. And it's important. So I keep saying our job is there is a profit for sure. There's a return on capital employed. This is a part of an investor. But even our investor, they want more. They want engagement. They want change. They want the drive. That they want to know they're going to make an impact. beyond the profit. And that's a fundamental. That's a fundamental. It's reshaping the industry, and honestly, it's reshaping the world. It wasn't like this 20 years ago. It would be ultimately all about profit. And I remember going to, again, INSEAD, where I was a young executive, probably the youngest in the course, maybe 2005, and there was a question that came through: if your board tells you to do something you don't believe is right, what are you gonna do? Now, I was 37, maybe 38, and there were people that were 55, 60, and they had big CEO job. And you know what? I was surprised because a lot of people said, we will follow what the board says. And my answer was, I would never do this if it doesn't fit with my value. Now, again, different cultures, evolution of the world, a culture where profit was all at the top, to a new capitalism, transformational capitalism that is driving into a different world. And investors today want more than profit. And it's just a fact. And it should be this, because that is going to reshape the world into a better place.
So as you know, the idea of this podcast is to really help people within the industry, guide them along their journey, and hopefully benefit from the experiences of people like yourself. So considering that and everything that we've talked about, is there anything I should have asked you that I haven't asked you, or anything that you feel like, okay, yeah, I really want to share that?
First of all, let me say this is amazing. I think there are so many great people around the world that getting these people into their responsibility and their understanding of how to get better as they evolve into having bigger jobs is fundamental. And I got where I am almost by chance, and I was lucky enough to always, again, have great people next to me that were shaping who I am today. So making this a much more structured process is definitely the way to go. So thanks for doing this. I think we cover many different areas, so I don't really have other specific areas. I think it's, again, I go back to three things that to me are fundamental for leaders. Is a passion, is commitment, and is engagement. This is all what makes different in sport or business. There is no difference between sport and business. It really is the same thing. You need the same fear way of playing in both. You need the same drive. You need the same passion. You need the same motivation. I always had one rule: try to get next to you people that have been doing competitive sport, because I think it creates that sense of leading an organization as if you were racing. And again, it puts a little bit of pressure, but when you are in a leading role, you have to accept that pressure will be there. It's not going to go down. It's just going to grow as you get the bigger responsibility. Now, the good news is you're going to learn how to handle that and drive that as an opportunity rather than as a challenge. So thanks for doing this. It's great.
Thank you.
And again, there are great leaders. You don't need to run a company to be a great leader. There are great leaders across the organization. They're actually much better of what we call the top executives. So I think the world needs leader to become a better place. And those are across the entire organization, not only at the top.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Franco. I think
you
you've certainly shown your passion, commitment, and engagement this morning. Sure. So I really appreciate your time, and thanks for sharing all your experiences.
Thank you very much for asking all the questions, and thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Dan.
I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did. We love to read your feedback, so please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks again for your support. See you soon, and don't forget to subscribe.